Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Okay.
Knock, knock. Who's there? No.
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Woo! 8 segments to beer! Thank God. Oh my God. The last 3 weeks. Oh my God. Oh my God. The only reprieve I got was Loretta's 87th birthday party, where I found out that she has an alternative family. My mother, it was like the Twilight Zone. Did I tell you about that? I didn't. It's like living in the Twilight. My mother apparently has another family that she loves more than mine. And after 25 years of their friendship, I got to meet them. I finally got to meet her other family. And it was like a Twilight Zone episode where, your mom or your dad has another family, and they've been living a double life the whole time, and then they introduce you to the alternate family, and the alternate family is really glad that they've never met you before. That's exactly what it was like this week, and that was my reprieve. That was my sane moment of the week, because here it is, everybody, the weekly recap.
And we're told that counterintelligence analysts and investigators were huddled in a room at FBI headquarters on Election Day, monitoring social media. They were able to identify suspected Russian links to the accounts that appeared, Jake, to be pushing this news, this fake negative stories about Hillary Clinton.
Well, the second one is important because of where it is. But the District of Columbia, which is always solidly Democratic and has an ethnic and racial composition that might be very unfavorable to the Trump administration. So
I think Senator Blumenthal should take a nice long vacation in Vietnam where he lied about his service so he can at least say he was there. And
there is an ongoing special counsel investigation. It is real. It is based on facts. That's what is important. That focus is what really matters.
It's about the fact that the President of the United States goes out and lies either by Twitter or in person daily.
I see the definition of lying as being pretty plain. A factual inaccuracy done with intention to deceive. Okay?
Right.
That's the definition of a lie. It's a good one.
Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury.
Oh my God.
Like the world has never seen.
So I think what the president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand.
Has just learned that the FBI raided the home of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, saying that it was in the early morning hours late last month. This was one day after, you'll remember, Manafort struck that deal with congressional leaders to meet with them voluntarily behind closed doors.
See what someone like Secretary of Defense Mattis thinks when a statement like fire and fury is being threatened and he hasn't been alerted to those exact words beforehand.
Well, he thinks that the president doesn't know his Hamlet very well. For one thing, it's sound and fury, and if you read the rest of it, it would say, told by an idiot signifying nothing. And
there is a great deal of confusion among Christians when it comes to this idea of using force to topple evil. And I wanted to clarify that I believe the Bible, especially Romans 13, does give President Trump moral authority to use whatever force necessary, including assassination or even war, to topple an evil dictator like Kim Jong-un.
His family, he's not getting away with it. It's a whole new ballgame. And he's not going to be saying those things, and he's certainly not going to be doing those things. I read about we're in Guam by August 15th. Let's see what he does with Guam. He does something in Guam, it will be an event the likes of which nobody's seen before, what will happen in North Korea.
And when you say that, what do you mean?
You'll see. You'll see. And he'll see. He will see.
Anybody? We have a president of the United States who is trying to outflank North Korea by being more like Kim Jong-un than Kim Jong-un. Let's call him Kim Jong mentally ill. How's that? Kim Jong-son, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong mentally ill. That's our president. That's who we have. That's what we have. Oh, I feel so good. And now, of course, today, just so you can keep up with it, he tweeted, we're going to go to war by Twitter. Can you believe this crap? I mean, he makes these proclamations by Twitter all the time, which is kind of why I don't think he's serious. I just don't. And I think if I were Kim Jong-un, I wouldn't think that the president of the United States would pull the trigger either. I would think he was a joke. I would think he was a bully. I would think he was an empty suit. I would think he was, something Mike Pence eyes, and says, ooh, one day I'm going to, make a face mask out of all his flesh. Do you know what I mean? Does it even creep Trump out the unholy way that Mike Pence loves on him, he looks at him and he worships him? It's very Kim Jong-un. It really is. That whole regime, that's the Trump regime, is very Kim Jong-un. It's all about loyalty, and God only knows what this president would do if he could to Jeff Sessions. God only knows what he would do to Paul Manafort because he likes people that don't get raided. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, it's like this morning he tweets. Military solutions are now fully in place, locked and loaded. Should North Korea act unwisely? Who the hell does this? I mean, honest to God, who the hell does this? Locked and loaded. It's like, straighten up, Kim Jong-un, or we'll send you even harsher bumper stickers. Let go and let God. You know what I mean? We'll start, real, bumper stickers. You have no idea how bad our bumper stickers can get. Honest to God, this is crazy. This is absolute madness. This is mutually assured destruction. Nobody's going to do it. It never can be done. Nobody can survive it, and therefore it's not going to happen. I don't even think anybody would actually follow the order. So I've been looking at whether or not the president can order it without Congress. The answer is yes. This is a remnant of the Cold War, that the president is the sole controller of our nuclear arsenal, him and Rick Perry. No, this is not going to happen. I mean, how stupid is it to get into a pissing contest with North Korea on the subject of nuclear weapons? It is the only thing North Korea has. They sacrificed everything else, including food, including, being modernized like Japan after World War II. They sacrificed everything to have a nuclear weapon so that they could be taken seriously. Now, I have a funny feeling that if Kim Jong-un, much like Pakistan or much like, India or like China or like Israel, gets a nuclear weapon, they will start to say, okay, now you have to recognize us. Now we can move into the modern world. Now we can open up our society a little bit now, because I don't have to kill people and threaten people and, be this brutal to all my people in order to, be taken seriously by the rest of the world, because the nuke itself makes me serious, doesn't it? Doesn't it? How do you like them apples? I mean, that's just a fact. That's where we are. Everybody's using this example of Libya. I don't know if you caught this, but I'm gonna play Fareed Zakaria. I think he had the most succinct explanation for what it is that's going on in the real world.
Imagine you're North Korea. You're the small country that went to war with the United States and now faces an array of the major powers of the world all against you. The United States has made clear it wants to get rid of this regime. Yeah. It has now enlisted China, the one ally you ever had, and is voting against you. And now you have the President of the United States essentially threatening nuclear war and saying that it wants to be the most powerful country in the world. What would you do in that circumstance? You would buy insurance, and insurance in international life is called nuclear weapons. And you're not going to give them up if the President of the United States seems erratic, paranoid, aggressive, and hostile toward
Seriously,
you.
Would you?
If you were to try to devise a scenario in which North Korea would cling ever more fiercely and ferociously to its nuclear weapons, Donald Trump has written it. What you really need now is a very careful strategy of containment, of deterrence, and then maybe a human rights push, a push towards negotiations. But how can we do any of that? We don't have an ambassador in South Korea. We don't have an assistant secretary of state for Asian affairs. We don't have an assistant secretary of state for human rights. The secretary of state is busy cutting the State Department by 30%. The president is welcoming the fact that Vladimir Putin is deciding which diplomats are going to be fired and which are not. I mean, we're in the middle of a kind of chaotic situation diplomatically, and what Trump is doing is adding to the uncertainty, as Chris was saying, but also the sense of insecurity. I mean, it's important to think about the world from other people's point of view.
Yes.
And ask yourself, does North Korea feel more secure or less secure? And if it's less secure, it's going to cling to those nuclear weapons as hard as it can.
I'm going to bomb the shit out of them.
Seriously, dude. So this is what he's adding to. He's adding to the insecurity that North Korea has, that they're only being taken seriously now because the Washington Post put out an article at the front of the week that said that one intelligence agency, the DNI, has concluded, or not even with great certainty, not even as much as the four intelligence agencies that got the other 13 to sign on to their report that the Russians hacked us. They're not even that certain about the report that the DNI put out, but the DNI actually said we have reason to suspect that North Korea has miniaturized a nuclear warhead that can now fit on a ballistic missile. Do you know? Now, we've had these reports over many, many years. North Korea's nuclear, North Korea's nuclear, which is why no president has ever threatened to bomb North Korea. This one is threatening to bomb North Korea. And if you were the object of the bombing, rhetoric, if you were being told that, the likes of which the world had never seen, fire and fury, if you were being told, you won't even understand, what happens to you, the power will be awesome. Oh. Would you say, okay, we surrender? Or would you cling to the one defense that makes the world take you seriously? Everything he is doing is playing right into Kim Jong-un's propaganda to his own people about why they need to go without food so that they could develop a nuclear weapon. Everything the president is saying is showing Kim Jong-un to be a freaking genius.
You're a genius.
Seriously. And all he does is blame Americans. He blames American presidents. He blames American secretaries of state. He blames American military. He blames American everything. Trump is a blamer. He's a whiny little blamer, and he blames America first. And whatever happened to, his America first? Why are we talking about mutually assured destruction in a nuclear environment in 2017, only 203 days after his America First populist presidential campaign? Listen, you may have different opinions than me, but don't you ever tell me that he was about America first ever again. This man conned so many people in this country. He was P.T. Barnum. He was a demagogue. He still is. He's a bully. He's an empty suit. An empty freaking fleshy suit that Mike Pence wants to wear one day.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1931. That was the day that the Airline Pilots Association affiliated with the American Federation of Labor. The need for pilots to organize became apparent as early as the mid-1920s. The airline industry was new, and pilots often faced dangerous conditions. They were often put under pressure to fly under adverse conditions, especially if they were tasked with delivering the mail. As the Great Depression swept the country, pilots were asked to fly more and more hours for less money. The organization of pilots started off small and in secret, but soon it grew. In 1930, the union got its unofficial start, holding its first convention the following year. David Bank was elected the first president. Bank had served as a flight instructor for the U.S. Army. He then led the Bank Flying Circus, performing air shows all across the Midwest. From there, he went to work for a private airmail service. As union president, Bank established the organization's headquarters in Chicago. Over the years, as plane technology has changed, the union has fought to ensure the continued safety for the pilots. Pilot fatigue, as well as security concerns, especially after the terrorist attacks of 9/11, have also been important issues for the union. Today, the Airline Pilots Association represents more than 50,000 pilots flying for 31 airlines in the United States and Canada. Their mission statement begins with the commitment to, quote, promote and champion all aspects of aviation safety throughout all segments of the aviation community.
I'm learning to fly, but I ain't got wings.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Are we to a point now where we have to accept, we meaning the collective, the world, accept that North Korea will have a nuclear presence, will be a country?
I said that yesterday, and now it's the media's talking point. Just saying.
That has nuclear weapons?
Absolutely. I think, and I said this publicly when I served as DNI, that the notion of the North Koreans denuclearizing is a non-starter. And I certainly saw that big time when I visited there as well. There is no way they're going to give up nuclear weapons. So I think we have to accept them as a nuclear state, which they
But this president won't be the president. He doesn't want to be the president. Pardon me, because there's a bit of a delay here. But I'm sure President Obama or any other president doesn't want to be the president where it became okay for Kim Jong-un or for North Korea to, you say it's acceptable to have nuclear weapons.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just being pragmatic. The first talking point was issued by the White House when I visited there was you must denuclearize. Well, they went nuts with that. They are not going to do that. They watched what happened to Muammar Gaddafi when he gave up his weapons of mass destruction, and they saw how things turned out for him. Yeah. So, and they see other examples of that. And they realize that with all their weaknesses, economic and their military, conventional military is very weak. So their only ticket to survival is their nuclear capability, whatever it is. So
that's what I've been saying for at least yesterday. Okay, no, really. I mean, this is so easy to understand. North Korea knows the world does not take them seriously because they don't have a nuclear weapon, and that once they have one, they might be willing to move into the modern era. They might, because they're no longer fighting for recognition as a legitimate state. And they've been fighting to be a legitimate state for 60 years. 60 years with the grandpa, and then Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-sun was the grandpa. I mean, and now we have Kim Jong mentally ill, and the two of them are facing each other down. This is crazy. This is really batshit. And it's scary. Did you see the newspaper in Guam today? Did anybody Google what Guam's reaction to this thing? The headline of their newspaper in big giant font is Missile Watch, And then below the fold, it says there's an article telling people how to cope and deal, and it advises them, don't look at the flash. Don't don't look at the flash. It will blind ye. Oh my God. How in the world did we get here in under 250 days? How did we get here? You elected a mentally ill, crazy man. Did you hear what he said about the leakers? I mean, everybody understands that the leakers are within the White House. Everybody gets where these leaks are coming from. When you read these newspapers where they say, on condition of anonymity, it's always a White House staffer, a White House source. Somebody from the White House is leaking this freaking stuff about him. And he said they're doing it out of love for him. This is mental.
Yeah, sure. We're looking. We're always looking. You have two leaks. You have the leaks coming out of intelligence and various departments having to do with Syria, having to do with all sorts of different places, having to do, frankly, with North Korea. And those are very serious. And then you have the leaks where people want to love me, and they're all fighting for love. Those are not very important, but certainly we don't like them. Those are little inner White House leaks. They're not very important, but actually I'm somewhat honored by them.
He's honored by the leaks that are coming out of his own White House because he thinks it's them fighting for his love, like sibling rivalry, and they're fighting for daddy's love. Oh my God. This man, if people were throwing tomatoes at him, he would say, they're making a salad. This is not normal, you understand, okay? I mean, if people were booing him, he would think that they were saying Trump. Bruce. I remember my first Bruce Springsteen concert, and I heard them all saying Bruce, and I said, why are they booing him? And somebody said, get with it. They're saying Bruce. Trump would think the same damn thing. He wouldn't even hear the ooh part. He hears what he wants to hear. It's not love of you that's causing them to leak. It's love of country. Everyone knows they've got Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un, and we've got Kim Jong mentally ill. That's why they're leaking. The only person that's fighting for Donald Trump's love, and you don't hear very much countertops coming out of him, is Mike Pence, who's standing there thinking about making a mask of Trump's face one day and standing in the moonlight with the moonlight shining on his new presidential face. It puts the lotion in the basket. It puts the lotion on its skin. It puts the lotion in the basket. It puts the lotion on its skin. Oh, my God. Mike in Minnesota.
Hey, you know what you just don't get the Trump code. I mean, he sits up there and he says, to which the world has never seen. Well, what he means is the world is never going to see it, okay?
Oh.
And it's an old Rodney Dangerfield routine where he says, my girlfriend called. She says, come on over. Nobody's home. I went over there. Nobody was home. So that's what the guy's he's just doing a comedy routine, and we're supposed to sit for it.
Based on he gets no respect.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Anyway, did anybody ever imagine when we were trying to elect Hillary Clinton, 6 months in, we would be sitting here talking about nukes?
No,
she warned us.
Yeah. I know. She did. She said he was a puppet of Putin. And of course, Russia loves North Korea. They're the ones that actually created North Korea. North Korea was under Japanese imperial rule from 1910 until after World War II. It's so interesting. 3 days after we bombed Hiroshima, that's when, the Russians moved in and they took North Korea.
Exactly. Well, he's over there. I think what he's doing over there is he's sure that China's going to come to his defense.
Oh, yeah. Don't be too sure, because China is North Korea's benefactor. China has been protecting North Korea just like Russia protects North Korea for a really stinking long time. So, if China really, I know they signed on to the sanctions. This man isn't even letting the sanctions have a shot. He's not even going to let them work. He's not even going to try. But China, if they wanted to, China could, end North Korea in like 2 months by just cutting them off from all kinds of trade and, the South China Sea, and they wouldn't be able to get any imports in there because they have nothing. They have absolutely nothing there. And China could stop North Korea from being North Korea in 5 minutes. But China doesn't want a unified Korean peninsula. They don't like democracy on their doorstep. So China will fight on the other side of the United States if something happens in North Korea. And Russia will thank the United States for killing, sacrificing our lives, in order to, take North Korea territory, which they took after we bombed Japan in the first place.
And in comes the sanctions again. See, they're going to say, well, if you renegotiate these sanctions, we will make sure they won't bomb you. I can see that coming, too.
Oh, Russia? Yeah, trading off their sanctions. Yeah.
Yeah, it always comes back down to the same sanctions again.
Well, it is so interesting when you look at how North Korea became North Korea. It's the Soviets that did it. It's just an amazing, endless story about Russia trying to rebuild their empire.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling from Minnesota. It's 91.
Hey, thank you.
What's the temperature there?
It's like 85 degrees right now.
That's pleasant. It's like 99. It's 99.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Last night at 7 o'clock at night, it was 91 degrees. I mean, you can't breathe here. It is like being in a nuclear, I can't even imagine. Maybe some nuclear winter is good for Florida. I don't know. Jay in Nevada.
Thank you, Randy. You need to do a longer show. There's so much to talk about.
Ugh.
So, oh my God. Trump with North Korea, of course, it's just one topic. And I was telling Howard, China and Russia have a better relation with North Korea than we do.
Of course.
So they could side with them, and then with
will
Russia
side with them.
7,000
They will side with them.
Right, exactly. And with the 7,000 bombs, I calculated out, it's 140 nuclear bombs from Russia if they were all to get shot off in each of our states. 140 nuclear bombs in each of our states if they all get shot off. But what I find funny...
No, that's not it.
No, it's 7,000 times 140 times 50.
Whose nuclear bombs are being shot where?
If Russia decided to attack...
Russia is not going to attack us.
I know that.
Russia is going to be very, very excited that while they couldn't find a use for Trump, as far as taking the sanctions off, in a direct way, that they will be able to get the sanctions off in an indirect way.
I know that. I'm just projecting other things, and of course I know that's not going to happen. I'm just projecting. But anyway, and I love how Trump, in 7 months of being in the White House, he has made our military stronger and faster and better. We're building planes and ships, left and right.
Yeah, I looked at PolitiFact, and none of that is true. I'm sorry. It's just not true, everybody. It just didn't happen. And the idea that he modernized our nuclear arsenal in 6 months, that doesn't happen either. That did not happen. First of all, Obama ordered a review years ago, and we've been, making some improvements, but nothing in 6 months has changed.
No, of course not. Of course not. Just like I want a list of the hundreds of manufacturers that have come back to the United States. That he says because he's got the jobs coming back.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see if Foxconn actually, does the deal and moves a plant into Wisconsin that isn't automated and actually creates some jobs.
Right, but Trump keeps on saying he's brought hundreds of manufacturers back. Where's this list? I want to see the list. He always says there's a list of something or he has information, but he never produces it.
That's because none of it is true. It didn't happen. Trump world, nothing happens in Trump world, which is the saving grace of all of this. What's really sad is that America has to come to the reality, that we elected Kim Jong mentally ill.
Yeah, thank God we didn't get Hillary in there. World War III would have been on our doorstep.
Oh, my God. I swear to God, like her, don't like her, it doesn't matter.
I love Hillary. I met her in Reno. I think she was a fantastic lady. She was personable. We talked for about 3 minutes while she was going through She stood there and talked to me and made a little video for me and my family. It was great.
you know, whatever people have to say about her, it doesn't even matter. You know, the idea that we are 202 or 3 days into a presidency of a man who has only done real estate deals, that went bankrupt for the most part, defrauded students at a university, tried to sell vodka in Russia and couldn't do it. That's like, you know, can't sell ice in hell. You know, I mean, the guy is just such an unbelievable con man. He is such a failure. Obviously, his money came from Russia when when he went bankrupt for the 6th time. You know, people who are really looking at where his money came from understand where his money came from. Mueller understands where his money came from. Manafort is in deep doo-doo. You know, the idea that they raided Manafort's house, people aren't telling the whole story. I'll tell you the whole story about what it is that's really going on and why they know Manafort is a liar and why everybody should know. And Trump yesterday praising Manafort, praising he's a good guy. He's not a good guy. This man lobbied for every dictator on the planet, every single person who was killing their own people using their own military or children soldiers. This guy never refused a penny from any of them. He's not a good guy. And obviously Trump has a fetish for thugs and mobsters and cheaters and sleazy people. He's attracted to them.
And then he praised Putin again for getting rid of 750 diplomats in Russia.
But you know what? I got news for you. Okay, go ahead. Finish your thought.
And then he's saying we're cutting the costs and stuff like that. That was disgusting. And he doesn't even know that.
So that's what I was going to say about Hillary. I'm glad you got there, because don't you ever tell me America First, number one, and don't you ever tell me second anything about Benghazi. Benghazi was an embassy, a consulate. Okay, that was left unprotected because of cuts to the State Department's funding. Okay.
Exactly.
And that's what happened in Benghazi. You left these diplomats, you left these people who were so dedicated to the mission in harm's way, unprotected. And the Republicans tried to make this somehow about Hillary. No, it was about them cutting. And now what does Trump do? He's trying to cut the State Department budget by 30%. Don't tell me we're not going to have more Benghazis. And as far as the Russian embassy goes, what Putin did was fire Russians. Okay, the people that work in that Russian embassy are local people. They are local Russians. Our embassy personnel in Russia will be reassigned to other posts, especially because he's cutting their funding by 30%. So they will be reassigned. Didn't save us a nickel. If he thinks that was funny, I failed to find the humor in saying we're going to leave our embassies unprotected. Russia gets to call the shots. I mean, and by the way, we're going to save money. No, you're not. Those people will be reassigned to other posts. It makes
he doesn't know nothing.
He doesn't know what he's doing, and that man has complete and utter control over that nuclear football.
Well, somebody said something about Article 25 or something like that.
It's the 25th Amendment.
Or 25th Amendment?
Yes, that would mean that his cabinet actually says this man is insane or unfit to serve or incapable of serving or whatever. They invoke the 25th Amendment and they remove him until such time as he is fit for service.
I feel
now, of course, Mike Pence would become the president, which is why I keep making these cracks about how he wants to wear a Trump skin suit.
Even though I don't like Mike Pence, I would feel safer with Mike Pence in there than Trump right now.
You know what? I don't feel safe with any of these people there. I don't feel safe with Bannon and the white nationalists. I don't feel safe with Sebastian Gorka in there. I don't feel safe with Trump in there. I don't feel safe with Sessions in there.
Won't that group get removed if Pence was to be put in?
Won't they get removed if what?
If Trump is removed, doesn't his people get removed too? And and Pence gets to bring his own, right?
No. Pence becomes the president, and he gets to appoint a vice president.
Ivanka's not going to stay. Jared's not going to stay. You don't think those guys would stay?
What?
Do you think Ivanka and Jared and those people would stay if Trump would? Yeah.
No.
That's what I was saying. All right. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate taking my call.
All right. This is crazy. This man, obviously, and the people who love him, they love him because he's breaking the world, and they wanted the world broken. This is all Bannon's baby. This is what Bannon told you he wanted, and this is what some of the sick people in this country voted for, to destroy the entire American democracy, to destroy it, just to bring it down to its knees. Only the survivalists will survive the nuclear winter. They're tough, they're going to be like the Revenant. They'll survive the nuclear winter because they have cans of peas and weapons. And the rest of us can go to hell. The rest of us, and they'll set up their own, regime. Oh, my God.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production.
For WIN, I'm Joanne Powers.
When our public workers are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Dozens of Communication Workers of America members in Pittsburgh Tuesday for the union's national convention marched outside offices of real estate giant JLL to protest the privatization of service jobs at state-owned college campuses in Tennessee. Diana Moyer is president of the United Campus Workers, UCW-CWA Local 3865.
Our governor in Tennessee is trying to outsource thousands of public facility services jobs to this multinational company. They want to take good jobs and turn them into low-paying jobs without security. Governor Haslam, one of the richest elected politicians in the country, is behind this.
Well, Governor Bill Haslam has already signed a contract with JLL. The CWA, which has been fighting the proposal for nearly 2 years, is calling on individual campuses to opt out of the privatization scheme. A majority of state legislators from both sides of the aisle share the union's concerns about the effect of the outsourcing proposal on state jobs and the economy, and had called on the governor to delay signing the deal. CWA International President Chris Shelton called on workers to stand up against the spread of privatization efforts nationwide.
What they're trying to do here is destroy good union jobs in the state of Tennessee. We have to stop them in Tennessee so that they can't do this all over the United States. We're not going to let them, when these dirty bastards come to your state. We have to know so that we can stop them, because if it keeps going, they're going to go from state to state to state. That's their plan. This fight is just starting.
Thanks to the Labor Video Project for this audio, laborvideo.org. The National Association of Letter Carriers announced this week that their members have overwhelmingly ratified a new contract with the U.S. Postal Service by a margin of more than 16-1. The new contract, affecting 180,000 postal carriers, will cover a 40-month period from May of last year to September of 2019, and includes retroactive pay increases back to the beginning of the contract, as well as routes to permanent jobs and improvements to health care for entry-level temporary workers.
The news is brought to you by Impact, the Iron Worker Management Progressive Action Cooperative Trust. Impact's mission is more jobs for contractors and for iron worker members. You can become an iron worker in Washtenaw Community College's pre-apprenticeship program. Finish 24 credits at your own pace and become an Iron Worker Local 25 apprentice. Earn while you learn. Apply now at wcnet.edu/iron. That's wcnet.edu/iron. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been talking about our original American Pledge of Allegiance written by Francis Bellamy in 1892. When introduced in October of that year as part of a Columbus Day program, it was well received and spread rapidly. At the urging of Bellamy, a salute was also adopted with the right arm extended toward the flag while reciting the pledge. Though popular, well used, and effective, the pledge and salute were changed 5 times over the next 62 years. The first added the word "to" before the phrase, "the republic for which it stands." The next change came in 1923 at the urging of the National Flag Conference, which wanted to replace the words "my flag" to "flag of the United States," so new immigrants wouldn't confuse loyalties, and the words "of America" after United States were added in 1924. Join us again as Congress takes control. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Americans need to understand just how radical a statement this is and how weak a statement it is. First of all, these are American patriots. These are women and men who signed up to serve the United States of America. They do it all over the world, and they do it in very difficult circumstances, working in Russia today. They are there to defend America's national interest. No different from our military, no different from our intelligence officers. And by the way, our military and intelligence are also there. They're part of that team. They're part of that 755. So if you think we're better off by having 60% less people doing that in the defense of America's national interest, it just means that the president does not understand what diplomatic missions do. And it's not just the State Department. I want to emphasize that. It's 24 agencies of the U.S. government defending our interests every day.
Ambassador, could you explain to the president how Vladimir Putin actually doesn't control the federal payroll, and no, we didn't save any money, that those people are all still on the federal payroll, most of them career government employees?
Well, you know, he used that phrase, he let them go. That was so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
We signed an oath when I was the ambassador. I signed an oath to the United States of America. As the ambassador, you served directly the president of the United States. So the syntax was just bizarre. As you said, he didn't let them go. He put an ultimatum, and instead of pushing back on it, President Trump just accepted it. I mean, imagine in the business world if President Trump, then Donald Trump, the businessman, allowed his chief competitors to say, hey, I want you to cut your staff by 60%.
Really?
That's going to give me an advantage. And then you just say, okay, I'll go ahead with that. That's the equivalent in his world, and it's just unacceptable. It's not in the national interest. And above all else, as you earlier said, it makes President Trump look weak in the eyes of the Russians. And you don't have to have a PhD in Russian studies to understand this. All you do need is to read the Prime Minister's Twitter feed. Prime Minister Medvedev, he said exactly that 3 days ago. It doesn't make him look strong. It makes him look weak. That's not good for our Russia policy, and I don't think it's good for our policy around the world.
That was our former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, who says, you know, Putin didn't let these people go. He's forcing Donald Trump to let these people go. And there's a significant difference between the president of the United States making a choice and the oligarch of Russia choosing for us, which is exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Mr. President, do you have any response to the Russian president expelling 755 workers from our embassy?
No, I want to thank him because we're trying to cut down on payroll. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm very thankful that he let go of a large number of people because now we have a smaller payroll. There's no real reason for them to go back. I greatly appreciate the fact that they've been able to cut our payroll for the United States. We'll save a lot of money.
This is a very strange man who lets the oligarch of Russia, a former KGB agent, make personnel decisions for the United States, where we will have embassy personnel stationed, how long they'll be there, which people have to go. I mean, Putin is literally, he took a couple of compounds from us too. That didn't make the news. I don't know why. But it's very strange that, you know, and now he said, oh, I was being sarcastic. Well, tweet that out or something like that so that Putin knows. So that Putin knows that you know that he's in control of our diplomatic corps. Let us know that, you know, you're hip to the fact that Putin's making business decisions, let's call it, for you and your company called the United States of America. Your company. This man has only ever done real estate deals. They don't work like this. But Michael McFaul was correct to put it in terms that Trump would understand while he was sitting there watching TV last night. This is like having your major competitor say to you, you have too many people in our region where we're trying to sell. I want you to cut your stores back and I want you to get rid of a lot of your personnel so that we can compete with you. I mean, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. We're going to save a lot of money. We're not going to save any money. And by the way, most of the personnel that he's cutting back are local Russians, okay? And the diplomatic personnel who are Americans, who are linguists, who are military experts, who are cybersecurity experts, we lose all those eyes and ears, okay? That's what we lose. But we will not lose them on the payroll. They will be reassigned to other places. Anthony in San Francisco.
Hey, Randy.
Yes.
Hey, so listen, when you said earlier about Kim Jong-il, I just want to clarify this with you, okay? Kim Jong-il was the father of Kim Jong-un.
Right.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So basically, it's like, it may not be a fair assessment to call Kim Jong-un as Kim Jong-il. However, the thing about North Korea and them planning to attack Guam, I'll tell you this, it'll be hugely problematic because if Pyongyang attacks Guam, it'll affect the Philippines as its as its closest nation to the west of Guam. And guess what? Trump wants Duterte to continue his endless war on drugs, and it's becoming more like the Asian affairs is becoming much worse nowadays than before Trump. It's becoming,
You know why?
Yeah.
It seems to me that Trump wanted a new product to sell. The Middle East and Iran and Syria and, all the, people were so tired of it. They were bored with it, the whole Middle East, the whole Afghan war.
Yeah.
So now he's focusing on a new region in the world that, he hopes Americans don't understand, and he'll sell it to the American people as a new war product, a new thing right. And I really believe that. People are not, they're not understanding what the Pacific Rim is. They don't understand China. They don't understand Japan. They don't understand the relationship between us and Australia and Japan.
Exactly.
And they have no clue. So he's able to come up with a new product, a new war, basically, that most Americans won't understand. And by the way, the lineage of the Kim family is Sun, Il, and Un. Okay, they're all the Kim family.
No. Here's the thing. Kim Il Sung was the
grandfather,
the grandfather of Kim Jong Un. Okay, so it's basically a patriarchal.
No, so that's what I said. The grandpa was Sun, the father is Il, and and Junior now is Un.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. They're all the Kim family. Okay, that's how it goes. The Kim is the last name. The Sun, the Il, and the Un are the first name.
Right. So Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Il, Kim Jong Un. That's correct.
Right.
Yes. So basically, the idea is this: Joseph Stalin propped up Kim Il Sung to found North Korea, in which, when he died, he handed it over to his son Kim Jong Il, and then when he died, he handed it over to his youngest son Kim Jong Un. He could have handed it over to his oldest son Kim Jong Nam. But he was, he
skipped over him. He skipped over him.
Exactly. So basically, basically the family lineage right here is, with that patriarchal, dynasty. It really makes me think, if Trump would ever do that here in the United States, wouldn't that be majorly problematic in terms of?
But it looks like he digs that. It looks like he's down with that, a hereditary dictatorship. That's what you're talking about, and that's what they have over there. Well, it looks like he's down with that. That's why he's got Ivanka in the wings. He's got the son-in-law Jared in the wings. He's got Junior on the outside making money for the. Yeah, I mean, it's for the enterprise. He treats this like it's a business. This isn't a business. This is a government. This is the supposed leader of the free world. He's making us not only look, he's talking about saving money by cutting the State Department, which is our diplomatic corps that is so intertwined with military action. The diplomatic corps goes first, and if they exhaust all efforts and there's nothing left, then they coordinate with the military, saying what they found out, during their diplomatic missions, where everybody is and what they have and what they're very hyper about protecting and what they're willing to let go. It's for military decision making. But if he says he's cutting the diplomatic corps by 30% to save money, maybe he ought to do a cost benefit analysis about how much we'll save if we don't nuke North Korea.
Exactly. And, the biggest threat that I find right now is basically between Pyongyang, Seoul, Washington, D.C., and Moscow, because, wherever the nuclear bomb falls, well, it'll be, it'll be the end of the six-party talks. And that will mean China will have to retaliate against North Korea, and everybody will be in a war zone. So, World War III, anybody interested in singing praises to Kim Jong-un?
But I still think that China will fight for North Korea. I think that they will protect Kim Jong-un.
Exactly.
And
that's the biggest thing.
It is.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Beijing.
Listen, they already put out a statement today. They said that if North Korea nukes Guam or sends a missile to Guam, whatever they do, they will remain neutral. But if the United States retaliates, they will protect North Korea.
Exactly.
So everybody better realize that what Trump is angling for is a war with China.
Exactly. And that means no more free trade with Beijing and the rest of the free world.
And if they wanted that result, there's a simple way to do that. Just cut off China from using American banking systems. And that's the peaceful way to declare war with China. Everybody knows that. Anybody who's looked at the trade deficit, if this is his way of negotiating with China, then he is Kim Jong mentally ill.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
This is Green Under Pressure. I'm Susan DiGiulio. So let's start at the beginning. As kids, most of us learned that trees remove carbon dioxide from our air and exhale precious oxygen. The science behind trees sucking in the bad and giving us good is what inspires a whole industry called carbon sequestration. Enter Noah Deich, Executive Director and co-founder of the Center for Carbon Removal.
Trees are the original carbon capture device. They have hundreds of millions of years of research and development and demonstration, literally field tested, in using photosynthesis to take CO2 and sunlight from the air and turning it into biomass that can sequester carbon both in living ecosystems and underground as soils build up. So there actually are quite a range of solutions, both natural and technological, for cleaning up carbon. I think because carbon removal is such a new idea in the carbon and climate conversation writ large, that it's actually a really great opportunity for accelerating climate action. That there are trillions of tons of carbon that have been put into the atmosphere over the past couple hundred years of human industrial activity. But what that means is all of that carbon can safely come back out of the atmosphere and be used to increase the value for various industries that today use carbon from underground, also increase the economic opportunities in some of those industries. Everything from forestry and agriculture on the land side to manufacturing and even mining on the industrial side.
So what kind of products can come out of carbon that's been harvested from the air?
So everything that we make today from fossil fuels, in theory, can be made from CO2 in the air combined with sunlight and water. So that's everything from the gasoline and the fuels that power our cars and ships and boats and other transportation forms, but also the chemicals like the plastics and the carbon fibers, and even things like cements and other building materials that are used in roads, in our homes. This is really a transformation of how we think about our economy, because if we're able to extract carbon directly from the air and turn it into building materials, we can create massive advances in how we manufacture goods. We can do it locally and using the materials that are readily available in the air, literally floating above our heads. And that really transforms the economic opportunities that we have to bolster local manufacturing and really improve how we can continue to grow as a society, but also do so in a way that cleans up carbon from the atmosphere and reduces climate risks in the process.
Noah says there are health benefits to manufacturing materials like fertilizer, fuel, and even building materials from the carbon that's taken from the air.
It's much cleaner than the processes that extracts fossil-based carbon. And so while many of these air quality benefits are not our primary objective, our primary objective is to figure out how we can clean up the carbon that's in the atmosphere. If we can figure out how to do this in a way that as a side benefit makes the air cleaner for communities and makes our communities healthier, more prosperous, and more resilient, those are all incredibly positive co-benefits. And it's something that we should absolutely keep in mind as we look for solutions. And you can see these benefits across the full range of opportunities as well, because at the end of the day, farming in ways that sequester carbon in soil often have great benefits, improving the ability of the soils to store water and nutrients so that there's less need for fertilizers and there's less impact when there are droughts or heavy floods. And so I think there's just a lot of reasons beyond simply the carbon sequestration aspects of these strategies to start deploying carbon removal.
So Noah, we hear a lot about trees. What role do our forests play?
I think we need to do two things in terms of forests. The first is to conserve the existing forests, because they've already accumulated so much carbon that the priority there is to keep that carbon locked away in those forests and not emitted back into the atmosphere through deforestation and land use change. At the same time, we also have to figure out smart ways to expand forests and create more area that is sucking up that carbon every year. And yes, forests initially do start to increase the rate at which they sequester carbon, but the goal really is the overall stock of carbon. What we're trying to do is take it out of the atmosphere and put it back into the earth.
Noah suggests that listeners sign up for the Center of Carbon Removal's weekly newsletters on their website, thecenterforcarbonremoval.org. For Green Under Pressure, I'm Susan DiGiulio.
You've been listening to Green Under Pressure, which was created as a reaction to our current administration's hostility towards our environment. Green Under Pressure is a regular feature on Progressive Voices.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Mr. President, was it appropriate for the FBI to raid the home of Paul Manafort pre-dawn?
I thought it was a very, very strong signal or whatever. I know Mr. Manafort. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I know him. He was with the campaign, as you know, for a very short period of time, relatively short period of time, but I've always known him to be a good man. I thought it was a very, they do that very seldom. So I was surprised to see it. I was very, very surprised to see it.
Have you spoken
we
to
haven't
the FBI
really been
director
involved.
about it?
Excuse me?
Have you spoken to the FBI director about it, or the?
No, I have not. I have not. But to do that early in the morning, whether or not it was appropriate, you'd have to ask them. I've always found Paul Manafort to be a very decent man. And he's like a lot of other people, probably makes consultant fees from all over the place. Who knows? I don't know.
Why don't you know?
I thought that was a very, that was pretty tough stuff.
Mr. President,
to wake him up, perhaps his family was there. I think that's pretty tough stuff.
He doesn't know. His campaign manager, he doesn't know who he lobbied for. He has no idea what his campaign manager's experience in the world was when he hired him. The guy lives in Trump Tower. They're running up and down the elevators to hang out with each other. For years now, this has been going on. And he doesn't know. And he doesn't speak to him, and he doesn't know him, and he was only with him for a very short time. Now, remember, Paul Manafort was the guy that shepherded the Trump campaign through the Republican National Convention, because the delegates were not into picking Trump as their nominee. There was a never Trump movement going on at the time of the Republican National Convention. Paul Manafort was specifically brought in because of his background in political operations. Okay, his background in Ukrainian dictators taking a charge of Ukraine. I mean, he was brought in because he was a political operative. And the sad truth is, he was in that meeting with Donald Jr. That meeting, the one with Veselnitskaya, the one with Akhmetshin, the one with Rinat, the one with the Agararlar family's representatives, with Russian spies, for God's sake. How he sits there and says this crap, I don't know. And how he says that Paul Manafort is a good guy. Let me tell you something. Let's just set up the scenario so you understand what Paul Manafort was for, what he was backing, what he was working for, what he was getting paid to do. On February 20th, 2014, Ukrainian riot police opened fire on thousands of demonstrators. They had gathered in central Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and they were protesting Viktor Yanukovych, the president of Ukraine's last-minute decision to back out of a deal that they were hoping he would accept to join the European Union. It would have distanced Ukraine from Russia. It would have fostered close ties with the West. Ukrainians wanted that. And Viktor Yanukovych literally opened fire on people who were protesting his decision not to side with the European Union and the West, but to stay part of Vladimir Putin's Russia. There was a human rights lawyer who represented the victims in this mass police shooting named Eugenia Zarevskaya. And she wanted to know back then who was advising Viktor Yanukovych to kill his own people this way. Late in February of 2017, hackers broke into Paul Manafort's daughter's iPhone. Do you remember this? The hackers broke into his daughter's iPhone. They published 4 years worth of text messages, 300,000 text messages. Russia, if you're listening, we'd like to know what happened to the 300,000 missing text messages, except they're not missing. We have them. The daughters of Paul Manafort, he's got 2 daughters, Jessica and Andrea. The daughters of Paul Manafort were texting each other on the dark web about their father. And they were texting some really awful stuff after this Ukrainian riot, and Yanukovych opened fire on innocent people and murdered thousands of demonstrators. Thousands, okay? And so when this human rights lawyer was calling on Manafort to clarify the allegations contained in the text messages between the Manafort daughters, she wanted our law enforcement to contact her with any information that we might have now about the events that occurred in Kiev between February 18th and 20th, 2014. And one of the members of parliament in Ukraine put a lot of pressure on the U.S. government to expose and investigate Paul Manafort's, influence over Viktor Yanukovych and his advice to Viktor Yanukovych, because Paul Manafort was paid literally millions of dollars by Viktor Yanukovych, by Ukraine, and that member of parliament, that same member of parliament, was the one who discovered the black ledger with Paul Manafort's name in it as being a recipient of millions of dollars from Viktor Yanukovych. This member of parliament also knows about these text messages, and he urged our FBI to investigate Paul Manafort. Now, the text messages, I could read you some of the text messages, and I will, but just know this. Last night, CNN reported this.
We've learned that Paul Manafort's son-in-law, Jeffrey Yohai, met with federal investigators just in recent months. This is according to two people familiar with the matter, and we're told by one of the sources that he provided information and also provided documents to investigators in New York over 2 months ago. And we know, Wolf, through our sources, that Department of Justice investigators had been seeking cooperation from Yohai, from the son-in-law, hoping for more information in the investigation related to Paul Manafort. Investigators have been looking into possible money laundering or tax violations in relation to his business dealings in Ukraine. Now, all the information that Yohai provided to investigators is now in the hands of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. That's being looked at. And it's interesting to note here, Wolf, that Mueller has not asked for documents from Manafort. He has even asked for an interview from Manafort. And as you know, FBI agents executed a no-knock search warrant on Manafort's home late July. We should also point out that neither Manafort nor Yohai have been accused of any wrongdoing. There is an investigation involving real estate deals with Yohai as well as Manafort that is ongoing. Their lawyers have declined to comment. Also worth noting here, Wolf, Manafort changed his legal team today. He has dropped his legal representation with WilmerHale and has now is hiring tax specialists, people who are familiar with tax investigations. So that gives you a clue into what this investigation is focused on with him.
Yes. Now, the son-in-law, that's an interesting piece of information. This jogged my memory about the daughter's text messages. The son-in-law, Jeffrey Yohai, is married to Jessica Manafort. Jessica and Andrea Manafort were texting each other about everything that their father was doing. And there were times in their lives where they supported their father, and there were times in their lives where they had to come to the rude realization that the money that family had, the Manafort family had, was blood money. And they were texting each other on the dark web. Why did they know to go to the dark web? They knew to go to the dark web because they understood that their father worked for Russia and Russia could hack them. And that's why they communicated through text messages on the dark web. Now, Jeffrey Yohai, who was married to Jessica Manafort, is getting divorced from Jessica Manafort. They moved for divorce a couple of months ago, March. All these text messages, here's some of them. These were sent. This one was sent by Andrea to her sister Jessica, who was married to Jeffrey Yohai, who has been cooperating with the feds for months now. This is March 2015. Andrea said that their father had, quote, no moral or legal compass. Andrea wrote, don't fool yourself. She wrote this to Jessica. That money we have is blood money. You know he has killed people in Ukraine knowingly as a tactic to outrage the world and get focus on Ukraine. Remember when there were all those deaths taking place a while back? Okay, we're talking about a period of time from February 18th to the 20th where Viktor Yanukovych called his riot police to open fire on thousands of demonstrators who wanted to join the Western world and break away from Vladimir Putin. Okay? She said, do you remember when there were all those deaths taking place a while back, about a year ago, revolts and whatnot? Do you know whose strategy that was to cause that, to send those people out and get them slaughtered? That's his own daughter texting his other daughter. By the way, his other clients include the Democratic Republic of Congo's Mobutu Sese Seko, Ferdinand Marcos from the Philippines, a dictator there, and, of course, Viktor Yanukovych, until Viktor Yanukovych was ousted by protesters. Manafort resurrected the Yanukovych party called the Party of Regions in late 2014. He rebranded it as the Opposition Bloc. But the text messages went on, and and Andrea appears to have said to her sister that Ukraine became late in paying her father. She said, he's cash poor right now. Ukraine is late in paying him. In a later exchange between Andrea and her cousin, Colin Bond, Andrea says that her mother and her father won't be able to go through a public divorce because her father has, quote, too many skeletons, and his work and payment in Ukraine is legally questionable. Now, her cousin, Bond, it was a political consultant and an election law attorney who worked at Manafort's consulting firm, Davis Manafort Partners, from 2005 to 10. That's according to his own LinkedIn page under his name. And a description of his work at Manafort's firm says, quote, he worked with a team that guided the client to victory in the 2010 Ukrainian presidential election. Now, here's Andrea again texting her sister. She says, this is what she wrote. She wrote, he is a sick fucking tyrant. This is her own father she's talking about. He is a sick fucking tyrant. Well, actually, she says this to her cousin, Mr. Bond. And we keep showing up and dancing for him. We just keep showing up and eating the lobster. Nothing changes. Meaning they're not ready to walk away from their dad, even though they know their dad is a monster, a sick effing tyrant, because dad is the ticket. Dad has got the money. Dad's got millions, and the daughters remain loyal to dad, even though they know dad is sick in the head. Now, the ledgers that the member of parliament, Lyshenko was his name, the member of parliament uncovered in an anti-corruption investigation in Kiev in 2016 suggested that the Party of Regions had designated almost $13 million, $12.7 million in undisclosed cash payments for Manafort between 2007 and 12. Manafort's lawyer denied that he ever collected the earmarked payment. He didn't deny that they were earmarked for Paul Manafort. But the Ukrainian member of parliament accused Manafort of trying to hide almost $1 million in payment from the Party of Regions, funneling it to offshore accounts. They know this because they did an investigation in Ukraine. And when they had their findings in Ukraine about Manafort and Yanukovych and the payments to Manafort to make Yanukovych seem like a legitimate leader, even though he was a Putin puppet and he was killing his own people. You know, 8,000 people died in Ukraine. Just saying. But they did an investigation in Ukraine into all this. And they forwarded their findings to the United States saying, please do something. This is exactly what William Browder did with, the Russian, the largest case of tax fraud in the history of Russia, where Putin stole $230 million from the Russian people's treasury and gave it to himself, but needed to launder it. And so he laundered it through that company, Prevazon. And Natalia Veselnitskaya was the attorney for Prevazon. So this is all about money laundering. But here's some more of the text messages. In 2015, Andrea Manafort texted a friend that Ukraine is late in paying dad, but she also repeatedly refers to the hacked text to her father. And she said that her dad gave her $4 million. Dad and Trump, and then when Paul Manafort became the chairman of the Trump campaign, she texted, Dad and Trump are literally living in the same building, and Mom says they go up and down all day long, hanging and plotting together. And Jessica, her sister, who is married, is filing for divorce from Jeffrey Yohai, who's already talked to federal investigators. She wrote, gross. So Andrea says, Dad and Trump are literally living in the same building, and Mom says they go up and down all day long and plot together. And Jessica, her sister, replies, gross. Andrea responds, you need to come to Dad's defense. It's really an amazing opportunity at 67 years old, and he's basically running the campaign now. He's so happy. Then when WikiLeaks released the massive email dump, right, of hacked emails from the DNC ahead of Clinton's nominating convention in July, Jessica Manafort assumed it was her father who did it. She wrote, Dad is brilliant. And Andrea responded, well, it wasn't Dad's doing. It was hackers, but Dad has to be thrilled about this. It's overshadowing the whole convention. The Ukrainian parliamentary leader, Lyshenko, he exposed these documents and he turned them over to American law enforcement. That's how we know this. And what's even crazier about it is that Andrea Manafort was brushing off all this controversy and defending her father, going, my dad has, she texted this, my dad has answers to all the allegations and there is no federal investigation. And then at the same time, she was interviewing for a job at a big hedge fund. And she texted a friend saying the executives at this new job were concerned about whether she ever worked for her dad or whether she ever owned property with him. She said, which I haven't and I don't. Then she texted another friend that somebody from the firm she was interviewing with, this hedge fund, quote, had to ask if I have any connection to my dad on paper, like if I've worked for him or if I could be tied to his Ukraine stuff in any way, like they're interested in the money trail, she continued. And then she said, there is no connection, but like obviously the article is making them nervous about me. She added, I hate my name. This is so unfair and I hate Hillary. She hired someone to do this to my family. I am so upset. All this fucking press. It's so unfair. Now, Business Insider called this hedge fund after they saw these texts and they haven't gotten a response from the hedge fund. But it does look like she did get the job at the hedge fund. And then when Paul Manafort finally, when the controversy was printed in the New York Times, remember that? With the Black Ledger story, that's when he resigned from the Trump campaign. That's why he resigned from the Trump campaign. And hours after his resignation was announced, Andrea Manafort texted a friend that her father, quote, felt he was becoming a distraction and that it would ultimately take a toll on the campaign. So he stepped aside. He resigned. These are his daughters, who are like torn between all the money because he gave him $4 million and where it comes from and how he got it. And why do we keep dancing for him and eating his lobster when he's an effing tyrant? And I hate my name and it's just so unfair and blah. But Trump still vouches for him. You know why? Because Manafort's flipping. And if he does, and he has no choice because Jessica's husband, who they're in the process of getting divorced. They just filed for divorce in March, April, May, June, July, 4 months ago. Her ex-husband has been talking to the feds for months now. 4 months. And then Manafort goes and gives some testimony to the Senate behind closed doors, and the next day his house is raided because he lied. He lied. That's why.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force.
Big protein, big flavor, big packs, little carbs. That's why my favorite snack is Herky Jerky. But you know, you can't get the best stuff at the gas station or even in the supermarket. You have to order it online from the best purveyors of jerky I've ever found. Herky Jerky. Herky Jerky is the official snack of the Randi Rhodes Air Force, and it comes in elk, buffalo, beef, bacon, oh yes, bacon, hot, mild, or 14 other incredible flavors. And for the month of August, not only on the 4 new flavors, new beef jerky, but $5 off on all of the full pack products, the bacon, the venison, the buffalo, and the elk. It's Herky Jerky's 9-month celebration with the Randi Rhodes Show, and the Herky Jerky owners would like to thank all of the loyal customers who have supported us because they are a small business. So are we, and we are very grateful. Free shipping as always when you order 2 packs or more of beautiful venison, beef, buffalo, bacon, elk in big bulk packs. You get your money's worth and $5 off of all the full pack products. Just visit herkyjerky.com and enter promo code August.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
Dear fellow progressive, These are the times that try men's souls. It is not the first time our country has been in peril, and it won't be the last. It is, however, a unique threat from within, one the precise likes of which we have never seen before. It is our modern media mix that has enabled an incurious, unserious, pathological liar and textbook narcissist to accede to the highest office in the land. His is a world of make-believe, one that could only have been concocted by a student of reality TV. At least we know he studied something. The imagined slights, the trumped-up, pun intended, feuds, the insulting nicknames, the Twitter diarrhea, it is all of a piece. Entertaining, funny even in another context, but when you're busy blowing up the country's longest-running foreign relationships, devastating the environment, threatening trade wars, and embracing all the wrong actors, it's really hard to find the humor. At Progressive Voices, we take holding the powerful accountable as our most serious mission, and there is nothing more important to us today than making sure the PV audience is informed with unbiased information and that more and more people become part of our audience, and therefore are better informed than they can be by relying solely on the mainstream media, which, in so many ways, has shrunk from its duty as the watchdog of democracy. It is our sincere hope that you will help us in this important mission at this most critical hour. Go to progressivevoices.com and make your donation today. Please give whatever you can. Remember, we are a tax-exempt 501c3, meaning that your donations are fully tax-deductible. Thanks for supporting the Progressive Voices Network.
Hi, it's Randi Rhodes. Listen to me on the PV live stream or on demand or both on the PV app. Just go to progressivevoices.com or download the Progressive Voices app.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
I thought it was a very, very strong signal or whatever. I know Mr. Manafort. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but I know him. He was with the campaign, as you know, for a very short period of time, relatively short period of time, but I've always known him to be a good man. I thought it was a very, they do that very seldom, so I was surprised to see it.
He vouches for this guy. His own daughters won't vouch for this guy, okay? They say that his money from Ukraine was blood money, okay? Here's more text. In one exchange, Jessica Manafort, whose ex-husband-to-be, okay, they're just now in the process of getting divorced. They filed 3 months ago. Her husband's name is Jeffrey Yohai, so her name is Jessica Yohai. But she's Jessica Manafort. She said, "I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm still proud of Dad. He's the best at what he does." And Andrea responds by referring to Paul Manafort's relationship with Donald Trump as, quote, the most dangerous friendship in America. They are a perfect pair of power-hungry egomaniacs. The only reason why Dad is doing this campaign is for sport. He likes the challenge. It's like an egomaniac's chess game. There's no money motivation. These are his kids. And so it's no surprise that the son-in-law of Paul Manafort has been cooperating with the FBI, because obviously when you follow the money, you follow the blood money, you find out that Jeffrey Yohai probably owns some property that's got questionable funding, and the FBI following the money and following the members of parliament over in Ukraine who begged our FBI to look into Manafort's money and to look into the black ledger and to look into the payments that Viktor Yanukovych, this dictator, made, and to look into the fact that when Viktor Yanukovych was gunning down his own people in the street, that Paul Manafort was representing him, because Yanukovych was a client of Paul Manafort's for 10 years. You may not realize this. For 10 freaking years, he has an apartment in Trump Tower, and they're running up and down the elevator, plotting and planning and scheming. Oh, I hardly know him. What are you talking about? Who believes anything this man says? Certainly not Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is what people were talking about with the credibility problem. Okay? Trump, well, maybe the words weren't tough enough. Tweeting out that you're going to do global thermal nuclear war, that's not tough. That's a cry for help. That's complete and utter weakness. That's like breaking up with a text message. That's pure cowardice. Go over there, sit down face to face, then, threaten the little guy. Can't even fire Jeff Sessions. He's freaked out by little people. He loves little people. He does. He probably watches Game of Thrones, too, and was impressed with the dragon thing. Do you know? But honest to God, he loves little people. Jeff Sessions is tiny. Scaramucci, who I miss like crazy, I have to say. Oh, the material that we had to forego because he had to leave. But Scaramucci was a tiny guy. Jeff Sessions is a tiny guy. Michael Flynn, he's a teeny tiny bird-like man. Have you seen him lately? I mean, just look at a picture of him and yet 7-foot-tall James Comey, who we probably found threatening, he fired, right? But the little guys, he keeps them around. I guess it makes him feel big. I guess it makes him feel tall. I guess it makes him feel big. I guess it makes him feel like he doesn't have a problem down there. No problem, no problem. Yeah? Then why are you texting? World War III. Coward. Nobody takes you seriously. That's not toughness. It doesn't take a tough guy to text and tweet. Start World War III by a tweet. Are you kidding me? I don't know Paul Manafort. I just know he's a good guy. You know, he's his own family doesn't think he's a good guy. They're torn between defending Daddy because Daddy gave us $4 million and feeds us lobsters, and we got these great apartments and we got this great education, and oh, look how beautiful my wedding was. Google it. Google Jessica Manafort's wedding. Go see what blood money can buy. Robert in Phoenix.
Yeah, Randy, hi. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
A little fired up.
Well, you know what really peeves me is you know, the media, they have this story. I know they have this story because the story was in newspapers. And that when they announced that the son-in-law is cooperating with the feds and has been for a really long time, and that the day after Manafort goes and gives, you know, his testimony to the Senate behind closed doors, the day after his house is raided, it's because they had testimony from the son-in-law to compare to what Manafort was saying, and Manafort obviously lied, and that's why his house was raided. But they also know that there are text messages from the kids saying that Manafort, you know, deals in blood money, and why they leave that out, you know, and then I sit there and I go, well, you know, I'm waiting for them to get there. You know, I mean, they're reporting out the story about the son-in-law, but they leave out the fact that there are text messages that the daughters had between themselves that clearly show that Manafort took money from Ukrainian dictator Viktor Yanukovych. So I had to remember it this morning and tell it to Scott. I mean, you know, Scotty was driving down to Hialeah this morning, which is a long haul from here. And I said to him, he said, you know, I pulled the CNN report where they, you know, the son-in-law has apparently been cooperating. And I said, yeah, and you remember he's got 2 daughters. One's named Jessica, one's named Andrea. Remember they were texting each other? He goes, holy crap, that's right. Now, why doesn't the mainstream media report that part of it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were. I think a lot of them were under investigation before he became president.
Yes, of course.
About it. Because of Comey's testimony when he said that he didn't know Trump, but he knew the nature of the man.
Yes,
this is the FBI director saying that. There's only one other way he could have known that.
Well, the intelligence community came out with their assessment before he was president, and they briefed him because he was the Republican nominee. So they briefed him. First they briefed Obama, then they went and briefed Trump, and Trump kind of knew they had him dead to rights, but he just kept saying it was a ruse, it was a hoax, it's a fake, it's not a real story. Then we saw a debate between her and between Clinton and Trump. And she said, you know, he said something about Russia, and she said that's because Russia would rather have Putin's puppet. And he said, no puppet, no puppet. I'm not the puppet. You're the puppet. That was his answer. I'm rubber, you're glue.
Scary times. You know what, Ms. Rhodes? I wanted to tell you, I'm a long-time listener, and you actually have been a very big influence in my life. I didn't tell your call taker there, but what I actually called for was to say that all presidents are looked back on time as fathers of our country for the policies they put in and stuff. And I said, when they look back at Trump, he's going to call, like Paul Revere, fake news.
Yeah, he would have. That's right. The British aren't coming. It's a ruse. It's a ruse. Right. It's a hoax. It's a hoax, everybody. Go to sleep. Sleep well.
But, man, you have been an inspiration in my life. I'm a 56-year-old veteran that had some medical things happen about 5 or 6 years ago. And I was down in my life, and I had to change professions because of what I have going on and stuff. And I persevered. And I've been in school for 4.5 years. I'm going to get my law degree.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I am is because of you, ma'am, and what you did during 9/11.
Oh.
And your fights when you were in Florida, and how you fought, and you keep staying, and you keep fighting.
Oh. You're a sweet, 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 real man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Bye.
Bye. He's going to get his law degree. That makes me proud. That really, he was getting weepy. I could get weepy right now too. That's a beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me today. Kurt in California.
Hey, Randy, how you doing again?
I'm getting weepy. That moved me. I don't know why. I get a lot of emotional phone calls, but that one got to me.
Well, I wish I would have heard it, but your on-hold volume is really super low. And
we'll have to get on that. Where's Roy? Call Roy.
yeah, but I heard you. I heard the clapping, and I saw you put your hands up on YouTube, so I'm glad you had a good moment.
Yeah.
Do you remember back in 2014, before you signed off, in the 2 or 3 years leading up to that, do you remember all those doomsday preppers?
Oh, yeah.
I think it started off in 2012 that we're supposed to get hit by a comet or something, and then when that didn't happen, it turned into, well, Obama's going to come get your guns, call martial law and get your guns, and then when that didn't happen, it just kept going and going.
Well, that's like that is an ad campaign from the NRA. That is what that is. That is, that whenever you have a Democratic president, the NRA sees an opportunity to sell more guns, and so they always say that the Democrats are going to come and get your guns, as if we don't go hunting. I don't know what that is, but they always do that, and then gun sales go through the roof. And then when you get a Republican president, it's bad for the NRA. It's bad for business.
Right, but now I'm going to look at the whole picture.
So you
would
think that the NRA would endorse Democratic presidents because they represent gun manufacturers, not gun owners. The NRA is a lobby shop for gun manufacturers, and so you would think that they would be very pro-electing a Democrat because the gun business goes through the ceiling every time you elect a Democratic president, because they can then say they're coming to get your guns. Can't say it with a Trump, can't say it with a Bush.
Right, but now let's take the politics out of it, and I want to look at the raw facts. Those NRA supporters that are hoarding all the guns, they still have their little bomb shelters. They still have their little 2 and 3 years worth of food. They still have their koi ponds and little hydroponic gardens. They still have all of that. So guess what? These are the same people that have been supporting the Republican Party forever, regardless of how bad they put us in positions. So if
we the people. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was looking for a video.
So now if this idiot, the 45th resident of the United States,
that's good,
were to pull the trigger and start a war, they're not really worried about it because they got their bomb shelters. They've got their stored food. So and if the economy crashes and there's a run on the grocery stores, okay, it's going to be those Democrats who've been thinking everything's going to be fine because President Obama was there helping to move this country along. That's been destroyed left and right. And so I'm at the point now, when I'm listening to this guy talk about he's praising a dictator for kicking our diplomats out, but then criticizing our own judicial law enforcement agency for investigating one of his people.
I know, and it's beyond that. I mean, he doubted the veracity of the intelligence community. He called them Nazi-like, and now he's depending on the intelligence community. The one part of the intelligence community, the DNI, okay, which is, I guess, Dan Coates, who came with a proclamation at the beginning of the week to the Washington Post. It was just a leak that said that Kim Jong-un was able to miniaturize a nuclear warhead and put it on a missile. All of this craziness is based on the DNI, okay, his assessment, not the entire intelligence community. And yet that's all anybody is talking about now because the president of the United States sounds like Kim Jong mentally ill.
Yes. But the thing is, two bullies don't make a right. No. I don't know where this is going to go, but it's not going to go anywhere
good. Well, wherever
good.
It goes, if they were real warriors, okay, if Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump were real warriors, they'd go at it toe to toe, face to face, head to head, and leave us out of it. but they're cowards, both of them. Kim Jong-un wants to hide behind a nuclear weapon so that he can be considered a legitimate threat to the world and be left alone. And Donald Trump is looking for, the ability to be a wartime president, declare martial law and all that goes with it. And he sees a new product called, Asia that he can sell to the American people as, the new big threat. Forget ISIS, okay? He said he was going to have a plan to destroy ISIS, the first day.
He sure did.
Right. And now he's taken his eyes off of the prize and he's just said, you know what? People are really tired of the whole Middle East thing. We need a new product. And he's decided he's going to sell to us. North Korea is the greatest threat to global humanity that's ever come down the pike. And they've been doing what they're doing for... I remember Richard Nixon was thinking about nuking North Korea in 1969. Except that Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon's Secretary of Defense said Richard Nixon has gone crazy. He drinks a lot. He's popping pills. We need to have an agreement amongst ourselves that if Richard Nixon orders a nuclear strike on North Korea, we disobey the order. We just don't do it. That's how old this issue is. So
right.
if Trump is looking at history, and he loves Mein Kampf, that's like his favorite book, so he knows what happens, after you get rid of Congress, after you no longer have to go through Congress. He knows that because he knows how Hitler was elected to be chancellor and then took over the whole government with the Enabling Act. And that allowed Hitler to make all the decisions without having to go through the very slow-moving Reichstag, okay? So he knows that part of it. Now he's got to sell some sort of a war. So he's looking at, Richard Nixon and North Korea and how old this problem is. And they've been taking advantage of us for all this time and blah, blah, blah. And he knows that that's his war. He knows nobody's going to buy a war in Syria. He knows nobody's going to buy anything in Afghanistan or anything in Iraq as being, alarming or something that would require Donald Trump, to be treated as a wartime, commander-in-chief. But this is new. Except it's old, and he could, threaten a nuclear war, and won't that be great? Because Congress has no say. It's the one thing he could do without Congress is launch.
Well, bottom line is, I've never been a prepper. Yeah, that's what it is. But what I'm trying to convey to you, Randy, is that I've never been a prepper, and I've probably got about 3 days worth of food in my house right now. If this fool acts a fool any longer, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to the grocery store as soon as your show is over. I'm buying $100 worth of water and a couple of $100 worth of canned food, and I'm listing everything I own except for my SUV and my trailer, okay, until this blows over or this guy gets impeached. But I'm out.
Well, I
talk to you later, Randy.
I can't tell you not to do it. I can't tell you to do it. I can't give a warning like that. But I will say that August 15th seems to be the day when Kim Jong-un is going to get some plan from his generals. Now, he didn't say he would launch on August 15th, although, President Trump is making it sound like that's what Kim Jong-un said, but he didn't say that. His generals said they would be presenting Kim Jong-un with a plan about Guam on the 15th. So what's today? So we have 4 more days. Dance like no one's looking. Keep calm. Keep calm and listen to the Randi Rhodes Show. Keep calm and buy a stinking podcast. Keep calm and see, I'm in Florida. I will be able to broadcast in the, during the nuclear winter. It might be good for us here. You never know.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of or how do I install it or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade to order from your imagination or an inspiration photo that you love. Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Hello, Progressive Voices Tune-In listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
Is there any chance that the repeal and replace is over, or what's next?
I don't think it's over. I think that at any time, once they get back from the recess, unless they go forward and work on tax policy, or they work on infrastructure, or they work on some other measure, they may well come back at it with another effort to repeal and replace Obamacare. And, I don't think they're going to give this up before the end of the year. They certainly want to enter the 2018 election cycle saying that they were able to do what they promised for the last 7 years that they were going to be able to do and have not done.
Yeah.
So, but again, the American people are saying, this is not what we want you to do.
It never was.
No, and we are seeing some congressional members already start to say, no, I am going to work with the other side of the aisle and see if I can't help fix some of the problems in the Affordable Care Act. Imagine that, a novel approach, having them work together.
Yeah, that would be great. Now, I know that most of us who have followed the repeal and replace know why the bill was defeated, but I wanted to know what impact Trump's threats to defund Obamacare have or will have on ACA's viability and stability going into 2018 open enrollment.
Well, this is a big problem. I was listening to the state insurance commissioner from the state of Tennessee. She heads up the National Organization of State Insurance Commissioners, and one of the things she was addressing was how very difficult it is for the insurance companies to be able to submit their premium rates for 2018 when they don't know what the heck this president or this Congress intends to do with the subsidies that people get paid for. That people don't get them paid to them, but they offset the cost of their premiums under the Affordable Care Act. But the reality is rates may be increased more than they were going to be increased already because the insurance companies are in such a state of uncertainty about what this administration intends to do. That's bad for patients. It's bad for everybody. So just stay vigilant. Keep listening to Nurse Talk. Keep following what's going on with politics as much as we don't want to. We need to as a nation right now. And keep speaking up to your own congressional members and saying, we want the Affordable Care Act protected and improved until we get Medicare for all.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
We the people have had it. We've had it with your narratives, your propaganda, your fake news. We've had it with your constant protection of your Democrat overlords, your refusal to acknowledge any truth that upsets the fragile construct that you believe is real life. And we've had it with your pretentious, tone-deaf assertion that you are in any way truth or fact-based journalism. Consider this the shot across your proverbial bow. We're going to fisk the New York Times and find out just what deep rich means to this old gray hag, this untrustworthy, dishonest rag that has subsisted on the welfare of mediocrity for 1, 2, 3 more decades. We're going to laser focus on your so-called honest pursuit of truth. In short, we're coming for you.
It's democratic, you blowhole. That's Dana Loesch, threatening the New York Times. We're coming for you. Everything with them is a threat. It's the most cowardly thing in the world to it's so needy. It's so whiny. We don't like the New York Times. We don't like you. The welfare of mediocrity. I didn't know that the mediocre, got welfare. Or gave welfare. What is she talking about? That was an ad for the NRA, by the way. That tied into Kurt and Callie's conversation. She keeps putting out these crazy ads for the NRA, and it doesn't work. The only thing that works to gin up gun sales is a Democratic president and or talk of nuclear holocaust, I guess. Screaming and screeching and complaining about the New York Times, that's not going to make people go out and buy guns. A Democratic president makes people go out and buy guns, Dana. Democratic, not Democrat. Democratic president. Yeah, blowhole. Going after the New York Times, I don't think that's going to do it. But, all these tweets between, Trump and Kim Jong-un and all that'll have a good effect on guns. A terrible effect on the stock market. Terrible, terrible. He's going to screw up the rally. He's going to screw it up. Matt in Seattle.
Hey, Randy. Great to talk to you. Been listening for a long time. This whole thing with North Korea, and it's so unfortunate for so many people involved, but this has been the MO ever since George H.W. Bush back in 91, going after Saddam Hussein, trying to make them into something they're not. And if you watched Maddow last night, she explained that the only substantiated information they have regarding North Korea being able to put together some sort of missile that could potentially reach the United States is from one article.
Yeah, the Washington Post article earlier this week.
There is nothing else out there. None of our security agencies have anything to say about it. It's
That's true.
Article,
That's exactly right.
And there's nothing out there for people to, someone needs to come out and step up and say and say what's really going on.
That's why I don't. So you listen to Dana Loesch or whatever her freaking name is. You listen to her attack the mainstream media. You listen to her attack the Washington Post and the New York Times. She ought to be kissing their ass. If anybody is responsible for an increase in gun sales this week for the NRA gun manufacturers lobby, it would be the Washington Post, who printed that story based on Dan Coates's, leaking.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
ironically,
they're so stupid. These Republicans, they don't have any idea how to govern. They never did. She has no clue that that's their greatest ally.
Exactly. And guess who was behind 4 years ago when this came out before? About
Judith Miller.
Judith Miller. But I also believe I've heard Michael Flynn's name. This is part of the reason he got on Obama's bad side. He was out saber rattling in front of Obama, trying to create this exact same thing 4 years ago.
Right, and Obama fired his ass.
Exactly. So
that's right.
Here you see it's like an MO it's like they've had it in the playbook, this is Putin's playbook. I'm pretty sure it's written in Russian and translated.
That's what I say. I keep telling you,
I know.
Our foreign policy has become Russia's foreign policy, and
it really is. And they're sitting in some room, some tea room somewhere, just laughing at it.
You're right.
I can't believe how far this has come. I mean, you read stories today about people in Guam trying to, what are they going to hide under?
Oh my God, it's frightening.
Can you imagine?
I can't. Their newspaper today was "Don't look into the flash of light," and a missile watch was the headline. Oh, it's just frightening. It's just horrifying.
If you really want to scare yourself, not that I'm saying there's a great article in I think the New Yorker came out about 7 people who survived Hiroshima and Nagasaki and how they did it, and just up to the last minute decisions they made, and on that day, it's a really great article, but very scary.
When I worked in New York, I was invited to a memorial for Hiroshima at the church where Dr. Martin Luther King gave a speech in the Riverside Baptist Church. And I went, and it was the most unbelievably moving thing, because you had people there who were, little boys and little girls when we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, who survived it, and they gave talks. They made speeches, and also there was this fabulous, it was the most moving thing ever to listen to people who, that was 10 years ago, so they were probably in their 70s now, their early 70s, talk about when they were little kids, how they survived it, and everything that they saw. I mean, the amount of cancer and the blinding of people and the burning and oh my God. And if you ever heard it like for real like that in a church from people who lived through it, and even though they were little boys and girls, you would never ever say these words out loud. You would never say nuke out loud.
And that just shows you how brain dead Trump is to reality. I mean, for him, this is another episode of The Apprentice.
That's right. And it sounds like it, and it feels like it.
I just feel like, he feels like a TV president, just with all the drama and holes in the plot.
And making everybody fight with everybody the way that they did. Yeah. I mean, creating this fake drama that doesn't really, just to pit one guy against the other. I mean, this is how he likes to manage, and it's leading to complete and utter chaos for the world. Okay, he likes chaos. They say he likes chaos. He thrives in chaos because he likes pitting people against each other. It's the way he bullies people is, by making them, fight amongst themselves. But you go back to real estate.
Yeah. And ironically, all this started probably about the time they bashed in Manafort's front door. And so,
oh my God.
It's a smokescreen. But thanks, Randy.
You're right.
Keep it up.
The timing of it is just absolutely insane. I mean, Manafort has his door kicked in at 4 o'clock in the morning with a no-knock warrant after we find out his son-in-law has been talking to the feds for 2 months, and he had given testimony to the Senate, which they could compare to the son-in-law and the texts, and it doesn't match up. And then they raid his house, and then all of a sudden we're going to nuke North Korea. Well, we have 4 days, like I said, so enjoy the weekend. You know what? There is this solar eclipse coming. Seriously. And he's a TV president, so he's looking for the right backdrop, setting, the right set. It's okay. We got at least 4 days. 4 days. I don't want to tell you to, do anything, because a lot of people really shouldn't be doing anything. But if you can do something, do something. Go to RandyRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.